The top 8 things I wish I knew about reselling before I started. Let's go. Before I start, if you're here for bolos and a list of brands and stuff, that's not this kind of video. So I apologize, but if you're here for that, turn back now. You're not probably going to enjoy this video at all. This is just general advice about the things I wish I knew before I started reselling. Number 1, this is very physical work. I had no idea what I was in for when I first started, but I'm upright about 6 hours a day now, walking, standing. Not kidding, it's about 6 hours a day that I'm standing, and if you include shipping, it's probably about 6.5 hours. Lifting bins and doing stuff in the garage and shipping out orders, followed by walking around in thrift stores for about 3 hours. And then it's the taking pictures and inputting on the phone while I'm standing there. That's another probably 2 hours, 2.5 hours depending on the day. I only sit down for about 45 minutes a day to actually put stuff on eBay. So I wish I knew how physical this job was before I started. It wouldn't have changed anything because that's one of the reasons that I still do it. I really enjoy the physical aspect of it. I come from the world of sitting on a computer all day long, and this job, reselling, is the antithesis of that. It's 100% different. This is the exact opposite of my old job, and that is why I love it. It's very physical. I love that aspect of it. It's really good for you to be moving around all day long. You do have to be careful of overdoing it. You gotta pace yourself, because if you do like I do, which is mostly one-offs, meaning that I go out and look through the entire men's section of a thrift store to find my items, and then I go do it again, and then I go do it again. I usually hit 3 thrift stores a day. Every day, sometimes 4. I'll go after work every now and then before some of them close at 6. So I usually finish up about 4:30, and then I'll go to another thrift store if I'm in the mood. So sometimes 4 stores a day, but it's very physical work. Not only the standing and walking, but the folding, the measuring, lifting all the bins and carrying things, and it's very physical. Especially if you do heavy stuff like electronics. When I first started, there's a whole nother story. It's a different tangent. I'll get into this sometime, but my first full-time eBay experience was selling audio receivers. And that was a whole nother level of physicality. But even clothes, it's very physical, and you will feel it in your body when you first start. Over time, you'll develop the muscles, and you'll be way better off for it. Be careful about repetitive strain injury. Be aware of how much you're bending over. Set up a system where you're not hurting yourself. For me, I have a specific custom way that I do my photography. I'm not bending over at all. I can do everything in arm's length. I've got it all exactly figured out. I never strain myself. My back never hurts. My legs never hurt. So yeah, be ready for the physicality. Embrace it. It's good for you. And just be prepared. You're going to have to take breaks for the first, I don't know how long it's going to take you to get into it. But for me, it was about 1.5 years before I was really not hurting or anything at all anymore. So now I'm good. I can work a long time if I want. Second thing I wish I knew before I started, almost everything is complete trash that you come across in thrift stores. Especially in clothing, almost everything is just garbage. Almost everything is just leave it behind. 90% of everything in the men's section is just leave it. It's just garbage, okay? I go through probably 1,000 things a day, probably more actually. In the men's section, I will look at every single item and make a decision immediately if I'm going to purchase it or not. Some stuff I'll look up, but most of the time I don't bother looking it up because I already know what it's worth. I know how much it's going to sell for. I know what the sell-through rate is. And so I just plow through it. I'm fast. But most everything is just garbage. A side note that I wrote down here is don't trust your gut in the beginning because you don't have one. So nowadays, if I'm uncertain of something, I will still sometimes purchase things if I don't know the brand. This is usually because I've used my quota for the day of eBay sold listings data. I'm not sure when they started rationing that, but nowadays they do, as far as the sold listings, because they don't put a limit on how many times you can search, just how many times you can search the sold listings data. So the reason I even bring that up is because I go through a lot of items when I'm out shopping. And I will go through a lot of searches, even though I most of the time don't search. It's still a lot. So in that case, when I'm out for the day of my sold listings data, I will buy things just based on my gut. Because I've developed a gut over many, many years, I get away with it. And I almost never get bit in the butt by buying something bad on my gut. But it does happen occasionally. But when you're new, you don't have a gut. Like when I first started, I was buying stuff because I thought it looked cool. Because I watched a lot of YouTube videos early on with really bad advice. And I followed the bad advice, and I ended up losing a lot of money. So be careful with following random advice on YouTube. Make sure that you're checking your items on eBay, looking at solds. And just be careful whenever you're spending money. Remember that that's your money, and it's much better off in your pocket. So, unless you know what you're doing, don't buy it, because almost everything's useless. Number 3, sold listing data exists. So, this is exactly what it sounds like. I wish I knew that there was a such thing as eBay sold listings data. When I first started, I didn't know it was there. I didn't know what it was. It wasn't until I came across it in a YouTube video where my head almost exploded. I had no idea that you could look at an item on eBay and look and see how many of the items have actually sold and what they sold for. I had no clue. For a couple of years, I didn't know about that. Now, we're all spoiled now because everybody knows about it. But in the early days, it wasn't something I knew about. So yeah, always check the sold listings. There's no limit on how many you can check on your desktop, but they will limit you on your cell phone. eBay's app will stop you after a certain amount of sold listings data searches. So use them wisely when you're out there. And if there's any ones that you're not sure about, take a screenshot of the search, and then when you get home, look it up on your computer. So sold listings data, it's very useful. Use it, get used to it, and master it. Next I have focus is a muscle. I wish I knew that when I started, because I almost gave up about 100 times. That's because working from home is extremely difficult, especially if you have a lot of distractions at your house. Let's say you have lots of cats or dogs, or you have a great TV with all the streaming services. You can watch movies. Like for me, I have lots of records and a great sounding audio system and turntable. I want to listen to records all day long. That's all I want to do. And I can when I work, but my problem is I get very into it, and it's hard for me to focus while I'm listening to music that I'm really into. So when I say focus is a muscle, I mean it literally. When you first start, it's going to seem like everything's distracting. And you're going to become you're probably going to get a little bit demotivated because you find yourself being distracted by everything in your house. The TV, the phone, the social media, the neighbors, whatever's going on outside. There's always something. You get hungry, you want a snack. You can do that. You can do whatever you want. You're at your own house. You can sit on your couch. Whatever you want to do, it's right there for you. It's very difficult. But focus is a muscle. And as you get more and more experience and get used to it, the things around you that distract you become less of a problem. So it will get easier. Don't give up. Just because you're feeling unfocused right now doesn't mean it's always going to be that way. You will get better at tuning it out. And you can make changes to your environment that make it easier to work. You can remove certain things from your field of vision. I forget what book it was, but there's a book out there. I almost want to say it's called Atomic Habits, but I'm not sure. It talks about surrounding yourself and removing things from around you that will distract you. So as you get more experienced, focus will get better, and you'll get to the point where I'm at now, where I just don't get distracted. When it's time to work, I just work. It's almost like I'm at a corporate job and I'm clocked in, and I just have the blinders on and I'm focused on my job. And when I'm done, I'm done. I don't even think about it until the next day. So don't be disheartened if it's hard for you to focus. It will get easier. Next, I have social media drains you. I wish I knew that when I first started. So this is the part where I sound like an old man yelling at clouds, telling you about the dangers of social media, and then everybody laughs and ignores me. And that's fine, but what I am saying is that social media it's like crack. It's on your phone, it's right there. There's all these different apps, there's all these videos that can take your attention away, and it's the craziest thing I've ever seen. I come from a time where I grew up, there was no cell phones, it wasn't a thing. And so my brain is different, it's wired different. I can't handle being on my phone all day and looking at social media and, Facebook and TikTok and all those videos and all that stuff taking your attention. My brain can't handle it. It just drains me. It makes me feel like tired after just a couple of minutes. I'm just exhausted. So for me, social media drains me and it's bad for me. So when I'm working, there is no social media happening, period. I do these YouTube videos. This is my focus when I do it. But when I'm working, I'm not watching YouTube on the side. I'm not watching TikTok videos. That stuff is just not in my surroundings anywhere. I use my phone all day for work, but those apps are not open. I don't care about them when I'm working. I do my own thing, and I try to surround myself with things that make me money, not things that take my attention. So that's me. Be careful with social media. It can really drain you. So next, there's a lot of driving. I didn't realize how much driving is involved, but there is a lot of driving with reselling. So I recommend, if you have the opportunity, to get a more fuel efficient car. If you're currently driving a gas guzzler or just a car that is not fuel efficient, I would recommend getting one that is, if you're going full time into this. Depending on what you sell, if you do clothing like I do, I don't need that much space. I have a hatchback. I have a Scion. I can fit all my shopping in one day in my back of my Scion easy. There's only been a few days where it was packed full. Careful with gas money. You can spend a lot on gas. There's a lot of driving. I recommend, if you're into mixtapes, like I'm into mixtapes, I make my own mix CDs because my car has a CD player. It doesn't have like a streaming service in the car, and I don't hook my phone up to it because my battery drains way too fast. So that's me. I try to enjoy my time in the car the best I can. I listen to music. Be aware that you will be doing a lot of driving, so prepare for that if you can. Number 7, burnout can be really brutal with reselling. So if you start to feel yourself getting depressed or you feel unmotivated, you can start to feel the burnout coming on. Take a break, take a day off, a couple of days off, at least take a nap. But no, when burnout comes for you with reselling, it's coming for you. It can be bad, and it can really affect you for quite a while. I've had burnout for a week before where I can't bring myself to work because I overdid it for too long. I worked continuously for 4 or 5 months without a break. It's just too much. So be prepared with burnout. It can happen. With reselling, it's particularly brutal. So make sure you take breaks or you're just going to end up hurting yourself in the end. And finally, number 8, I wish I knew when I started eBay just how common fakes are out there. Especially with clothing. It's not just the fancy brands like Louis Vuitton or Gucci or Prada. There's fake Tommy Bahama out there I've come across. Especially with shoes, sneakers, they're everywhere. So be aware of fakes. Be careful when you're looking at stuff. Try to at least do a basic level of authenticity yourself. If you see something that doesn't look like the other ones you found, like let's say you find a fancy brand and you found it before, but this one looks a little bit different, I would say either put it back, or if you get it really cheap and you're not sure about it, there are videos on YouTube and TikTok that will help you authenticate. And there are even some brands that will help you authenticate themselves. So be aware of that. There are way more fakes than I thought. When I first started, I thought it was overstated. I thought there was people in Facebook groups that just like to hear themselves talk, that were rambling on about fakes, but it's a real thing. There's a ton of them out there. Tennis shoes, sneakers, men's shirts, pants, fancy jackets, all the big designer brands are faked and counterfeited heavily. So be aware of that. I had no idea when I first started, but I found hundreds and hundreds of fake items. So if you're not sure, it's better to leave it behind, because eBay can hurt your account or close your account or ban you if you sell too many counterfeit items. Also, this wasn't on my list, but I'm adding this at the end just as an ad lib. I didn't know when I first started that you could block people on eBay. So this is something that I do almost every day. At least a few times a week, I will block someone on eBay. So I'm not going to go through how to do it, but the way it works is you can block a buyer if you know their username. They will not be able to purchase from you. They'll still be able to message you, which I don't know why eBay's block doesn't actually block them, but it stops them from buying from you. So this becomes useful when you have someone reaching out to you or messaging you and you just know they're going to be a problem. And this happens to me a lot. I block people that return things for stupid reasons. I block people that buy and don't pay. I block people that ask me too many stupid questions in a row. I block anyone that sends me any message that's even semi-personal. I'm here to make money and business, not to make friends. Don't waste my time on eBay. I will block you immediately. So block people. It really does save you time, and it can actually save your account, because there are real scammers out there, and they will try to phish you and get information from you. And it's best if you just block anyone that gives you a bad feeling. Block them. Don't know how to do it? Just Google how to block a buyer on eBay. It's super easy. I highly recommend that you start developing a really good block list. My block list probably has over 1,000 usernames on it, but that's over years and years and years. So that's it.